One of the things you'll want to do with the Vermona is to program which MIDI notes connect with which drum. And here's how you do that. You turn off the Vermona, hold down 2 buttons and the power key. You hold this down until it blinks, like that. And now, the first pad that you hit is going to connect with a kick, the second one with the drum, etc. So you'll want to think through which pads you want to use for your kick drum and your hi-hat before you start to program it, because you have to do it in that order. The assignments can also be layered, which presents some interesting possibilities, but also some frustration. If I was to simply go through and hit the same pad for all the notes, they're all triggered by the same one. Okay, now it's ready to program. Let's get some of these out of the way here, and I'll show you something about the hi-hats. Okay, we're about to sign hi-hat number 1, and I'm going to sign it to this pad here, and sign hi-hat 2 to this pad. We'll go ahead and put the clap here. Now, when I hit the hi-hat 1 here, there's 2 pads that automatically are assigned to the hi-hat. This one, and it goes over a half step to have a shorter hi-hat and a longer one. Same thing here. So you assign where you want the longer one to be, and it automatically assigns the short one 2 steps over, 2 half steps over. This really frustrated me for a while because I was laying out my pad configuration and I would put like a snare here and I put the hi-hat over here, thinking that the 2 hi-hat arrangements would be right next to each other, but that's not how the Vermona works. They're set this far apart, so you have to be comfortable playing your hi-hats with a little bit more space in there. I would prefer them if they were right next to each other, but you just can't do that on the Vermona. I'll show you the pad configuration that I like the best, which is to have the kick drums over on this side, put the snare and the clap down here, and then the hi-hats in these spots right here. And on my MPC Live, I created a specific MIDI program for the Vermona that color-coded the ones that I wanted to look at. And I put my kicks over here, my clap and my snare here, hi-hats here, and then this multi one up above. So I have to pay attention to how I lay this out. I'm about to hit the notes here. So I'm going to put the kick here, drum number 1 here, drum number 2 there, the multi one up there, snare. Now I got to start putting the hi-hats in, and I have to start with the long version. In order to get the short one here, I have to hit on this side for hi-hat 1. Something got messed up with that. I think I hit it too hard. I have to do that over. Okay, let's try that again. Kick, drum number 1, drum number 2, multi, snare, hi-hat 1, hi-hat 2, and the clap. All right. So I got my hi-hats here. Clap and the snare and the clap. Kind of these drum number 1 and drum number 2 can definitely create tom-like bass drum sounds depending on how you pitch it. you can lay out the pads specifically to however you want to play them. Obviously you could configure it any way that you wanted to. This is the way that it just feels the most comfortable for me when I'm finger drumming. Another thing I like to do with the Vermona is to use the pan feature as a mixer of sorts. The other thing I like to do with the Vermona is use some sort of effects pedal to change the sound of this. I think by itself it sounds a little weak. So the distortion can add a lot of character to it, but it can be overwhelming to do that on all the instruments, and it affects them differently. So what I do is I set up the pan feature. So that the left pan is dry, and with the stereo output I go straight into my DAW or speaker from the left, a dry signal, and then I use the right channel to run into the distortion pedal. That way I can blend the amount of dry or wet signal. This is particularly useful where the hi-hats, if you use distortion on them, it really changes the sound significantly on them. I don't always like distortion on my hi-hats. I tend to put it mostly on the bass drum and also on the snare or the clap. So let's crank this up a little bit and I'll show you what it sounds like. Okay, that one's very dry at the moment. Turn on my volumes to be the same. Adds a lot of character to mix in that distortion. It's kind of nice right there. That's a dry signal. So to me it's a little too dirty and a little too low end, so I prefer not to have any distortion, or if anything just a tiny bit. At the 100% wet. That sounds really nice, that distortion on there. Dry sounds like this.